If I make a mistake, I'll own it.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the December 10th Administrative Committee meeting of the Moscow City Council. I am Gina Terusio. To my right is Brandy Sullivan, and to my left is Jim Boland. To his left is Gary Riedner, representing city staff. First item on our agenda is the approval of the Administrative Committee November 26, 2018 minutes.
I'm going to have to abstain since I'm not really on this
You're
committee.
going to abstain, and I think they were good. So there you go.
Thank you.
Second item is the City of Lewiston agreement with the City of Moscow shooting range. Captain Chief Fry, please come up and tell us the story.
I don't know if that was a demotion or not, Chief.
No, I call him Captain James, so that's mine, but it's really Chief Fry. Please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
So we are asking that the city would recognize an agreement with the City of Lewiston for use of their firearms range. We don't need it all the time, but during the winter months when our range snows in and blows in and we can't get to it, there's still training needs that we have with new officers or our SWAT team or just being able to go down and shoot. And with the weather down there where it's nicer, they've agreed to allow us to use their range for those purposes.
I can't see a problem with
Yeah,
that.
I don't see a problem either.
Got
Okay.
closer access to ammunition down there anyway.
Yeah, and we used to use it before we had our range, so we're familiar with it, and they've granted us the opportunity to use that when we need to.
Where is the range here?
Ours,
Yours,
it's out on Butte Road, so if you go out by the Lighthouse Gospel on Troy Highway, you'll come around, headed back towards Linville, and it sits kind of there behind the dump, back to the south of the dump there. We have 6.5 acres, I think.
Awesome. Okay. Consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Fry.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, our next item is the FY20 cooperative agreement for the ADA ramp, and I believe that Nate Sir is coming to visit with us instead of Elisa Anderson.
Elisa, she's unfortunately sick.
Oh,
Just change the input here.
okay.
Zach's got you.
Okay. Thank you. So I just put a really short PowerPoint presentation to describe what we're doing. Essentially, we're just asking for approving a cooperative agreement for this project. We've been awarded the funds to do a single pedestrian ramp project here at the corner of 3rd and Jackson. So, as you know, this area, it's over by the Turnstone Flats building. It's a really narrow, there's a lot of utility configurations that get in the way of pedestrians, and it's completely non-compliant as is. So what we've done, and in addition to that, the lighting is not full cutoff lighting, so it doesn't meet the Dark Skies Initiative. So what we did this year is we went through and we hit all the areas around the pedestrian ramp. So we replaced the sidewalks with ADA compliant sidewalks, put in pavers, lighting, and unfortunately you can't see them here, but tree grates as well. So we have this entire corridor can be used as an ADA access route. But then that leaves us with the pedestrian ramp itself, which we did not do with this project, and this is what we're proposing to do with this ITD award. So we requested $32,000, and we were awarded the full grant for this particular pedestrian ramp. And any questions?
Will you go back to that last slide and walk me gently through that, please?
Absolutely. So here, these are all things that were installed with this previous project. We've got the compliant pathway, pedestrian ramps, tree grates, and this will, because it's such a steep corner, in order to meet the slope requirements that we need for it to be an ADA access route, we had to extend this ramp here. So with that length, we're able to stay within our requirements for ADA compliance. In addition, it also shortens the pedestrian pathway as you go to the north. Because of being on a state highway, we weren't able to extend it any further to the west, but that would be a hard fight if we even, if we even went after that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
are there any further questions?
When would you anticipate doing the work?
It would be next construction year, so in 2019. They give us 2 years to work on it, but there's, with a project of this size, we'd want to jump right on it and get it done as quickly as possible.
And there's no match except for our design and construction.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's no cash match. This is a fully funded ITD program.
All right, I would
Good.
recommend approval of that cooperative agreement. And
Always approve of free money.
Let's put it on consent.
Yeah.
Okay.
sure.
Thank
All
you
right,
very much.
thanks,
Thank
Nate. Okay, our next item is Idaho Commission on the Arts Grant Application, Jen Piffner and Megan Cherry.
Thank you. I first want to introduce Megan Cherry. She is our new arts program manager with the City of Moscow. So she's
welcome.
been with us slightly part-time over the last month, and today is her first full-time day, so she's here forever now. So the item that we're presenting is an annual grant opportunity through the Idaho Commission on the Arts. It's a federal grant that comes from the National, I'm going to make sure I get it right, National Endowment for the Arts, federal agency that the Idaho Commission on the Arts administers. The entry track program is one that we've applied for several years running now. Typically, we get an award anywhere from $35,000 to $6,000. It's really determined on who applies. They have a formula that they work through on that, and then the type of application that we put in as well. It's a very simple application due at the end of January, and we're just looking for permission to make that application for this coming year. We do the entry track grant program in hopes of one day getting a public program notice, so that we will then be in an annual funding cycle at a different level for our public art programs in Moscow.
It says that you have an art project slated for the C and Main Street location. Give me a landmark or something there.
North Couplet, just
okay.
north of CJ's in that triangle-ish area.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's outlined in the Public Art Master Plan, and I believe we've talked about the location with council. I think Kathleen maybe had done that in the past year.
Yeah. With the, I think it was in relation to the tree.
Yes,
Needing to go.
looking in the
Yeah.
tree and having that taken out as we prepare that site for the public art installation that is to come.
With this grant, are you required to submit that particular location and project? Do you have to identify that?
They want to know how you're going to use the funding. They do want something that's specific. So I think the last one was for the cases for
We
out here in the
used-
Third Street Gallery.
Yes, and
correct?
some NowPAC expenses, that Public Art Consortium
Yeah.
conference that was
Yeah.
hosted here, so combination of those things. And then a balance, actually, we found the cases at a reduced price compared to what we had quoted when we applied for the grant, and so some of those funds went to the ACLU mural as well.
Okay.
So they're very flexible if you discuss with them what you'd like to do if opportunities come up during the grant cycle. They're very open to hearing those things and just looking at kind of the general community impact of whatever you're doing.
So if you were awarded more than was needed for that particular project, you could use the excess in something else?
We anticipate that CN Main project, right now it's estimated at about 30,000. So this being the max of 6,000 is what we've seen in this program. We don't see that would perhaps occur this time around, but we'd absolutely be able to do something if for some reason it did.
Okay.
The balance of the funds for the C and Main project is from the 1%.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Recommend approval.
All right. And again, consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you
Happy
very much.
first day. Okay, our final item is the proposed climate change and carbon fee resolution. Mr. Reedner.
If I could have Steve McGinn, the chair of our Sustainable Environment Commission, come forward as well. The mayor was contacted early last summer by some citizens to consider writing a letter or preparing a resolution for supporting carbon fee reduction in, and I'm not the one to be talking about this except to give you some history. So we toyed with the letter for a while, and eventually it was brought forward. City of Pullman passed a resolution in support of reduction of carbon and imposition of a carbon fee, or encouragement that a carbon fee legislation be passed on the national level. So at that time, Sustainable Environment Commission, Steve penned a letter, which is in your packets,
Yep.
Requesting the mayor to move a resolution forward. So the resolution that was proposed, we did a little bit of wordsmithing with it, but otherwise it looked good, so we're bringing it forward for your consideration. So I'd ask Steve if he would like to present or bring anybody else he would like forward.
I'd like to invite Matt Cantrell forward, if you don't mind. Matt, come on. And just a little bit more background. Gary gave you the gist of it, but this really, we've been working on for almost a year now. The Citizens Climate Lobby with Matt Cantrell and Mary Dupree came to our February meeting with a proposal or a request that we asked the city to do something, make a statement about climate change. Certainly this has been in everybody's mirror for quite a long time, but we think it's really time that the City of Moscow make a statement. And so, as Gary indicated, we have talked a lot about this. Probably the two comments I want to make before I turn it over to Mac for the specific details. One, I think the CCL in particular did a commendable job in reaching out to City Council and the mayor before just coming out of left field with the resolution, and really taking the time to meet with everybody, answer questions. It's a complicated concept. You know, the resolution talks about a fee and dividend, revenue neutral. I guess I hope I don't mess it up too much for you, Mac. But yeah, it takes a lot to explain that to you, really understand what's being requested. And then the second thing, it's timely. Certainly this has been in the news and it's not going to go away, but Mac shared something with me that I think is worth sharing with you. And this was mid-November, a bipartisan group of lawmakers proposed a bill in Congress, and this was bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, to look at a revenue-neutral carbon dividend approach, very similar to what we're asking the City of Moscow to put in the form of a resolution. So with that, Mac, if you, I didn't steal your thunder, is there anything else you'd like to add?
You're absolutely on. If you guys got any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer any of them. It's basically just asking Congress to take some sort of action that would really curb climate change and curb carbon pollution. And what this is specifically is asking them to do any kind of a program that would involve putting a price on carbon and having all of that money come back to every household. And it's a type of system that's been proposed by enormous numbers of groups now. And the vast majority of economists all over the world say that putting a carbon price on fossil fuels and then letting the market adjust is the cheapest way we can do this, and that we can avoid enormous amounts of costs that are already occurring from climate change and from carbon pollution, even separate from climate change itself. There have been quite a number of proposals like this. We're not proposing any specific one, just this type of an approach, asking Congress to do this. The Climate Leadership Council is a group composed of elder statesmen from the Bush and Reagan administrations who have a proposal that is very similar to the CCL one. It would fit within exactly what you're asking here, just a fee dividend going back to all households. The Americans for Carbon Dividends is another group that is pushing for this sort of thing. ExxonMobil just gave them $1 million a month ago to help them push for this in Congress. So it's coming from all parts of the political spectrum, the desire to do this. The HR 7173, I think it is, that you just mentioned, was introduced by 2 Republican congressmen and 3 Democratic congressmen. Another Republican congressman has come on board as a sponsor, so it now has 3 Republicans, 3 Democratic sponsors. And it's something that groups have worked for a long time behind the scenes. This has been 10 years in the building, and for this bill to come up in Congress is a major indicator that across the board, more and more people are wanting exactly this kind of thing to occur. So I think that's, it's interesting information for you to use in thinking about how timely this sort of thing is and how widely it's become accepted as a best route to go. I have some info that I'd like to give you guys, just stuff you could look at later, that is 10 different developments just over the last few months. They're all, in fact, here. I didn't get a chance to staple these. Are 5 copies. There are 2 pages each. There are some recent events that have occurred that are indicators that this sort of thing needs to be done, that it's being widely recognized, and that there's now a major push for this sort of thing to be done. Quite a number of cities across the U.S. have done resolutions exactly like this. They're non-binding resolutions just asking Congress to do this sort of an approach.
We provided in the backup Salt Lake City's resolution and some other examples.
Saw that.
Yep.
Do you guys have any questions?
No, it's pretty hard to argue against anything that pushes towards alternative energy because
Yep.
there's only so much
Mr. Mayor?
non-alternative energy.
We need we need fossil fuels, but we also need to be adjusting away from them in an orderly fashion that will allow industries and economies to adjust as they go.
Council, I wanted to put my 2 cents worth in. Mac, as well as Mary Dupree, came in and see me. I don't know how many different times you and Mary came and saw me, and sometimes independently in addition to a tag team. And they brought all kinds of information for me to read. And at first, I was more inclined to write some type of a letter as a city. But the more I read and studied it and got into it, I thought the right thing to do would be a resolution. And it'd be good for us to take the leadership role in the state of Idaho to go forward with this. I think it's a big thing, and it's not going to change. I'm absolutely convinced of that. So I think now is a perfect time for us to move forward with this and see what happens. So I'm kind of excited about it. So I just wanted to share that with you. And Mary Dupree and Mac, Cantrell's persistence in talking to me. And we had some great conversations in my office, which I really appreciated. And of course, Steve wasn't a part of that. He was kind of going along with it, of course, as well as the Sustainable
Just
Environment
going
Group,
along
which is
with it.
great because they're right in tune.
These guys have helped us a lot.
They're in tune to it, so don't.
A good set of eyes.
I'm not taking that lightly, but it was Mac and Mary, and we talked a number of different times. It was always good, enjoyable conversation that we had. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty natural extension of what the city has already demonstrated as a commitment to reducing, the carbon footprint and water use and sustainability, and with a lot of documented successes across departments, and how the city has accomplished this. And this makes sense to me as the next step. I love the idea of kind of stepping out for the state of Idaho, and just a matter of time before everybody else comes along and time to jump in, so.
I like what that this really actually says what I think our community believes, so this is a good, encouraging, nice, optimistic effort. So I say that we forward this to the council, the rest of the council, with encouragement to
agenda.
approve or regular agenda.
I would say
You can-
regular agenda, but I would say encouragement to approve.
Yeah.
Okay, so both of
Recommendation,
those.
yep.
Okay?
Probably wasn't exactly the right terminology. Okay, so we'll take it to council and talk to the one of us that is not here today. We'll be there that night, and we'll go from there, and we thank you for your efforts.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
That's our last item. On our agenda, we have no other reports or anything, so I would entertain a adjournment.
So moved.
All right, good, adjourned. Thank you.